You're listening to SaskScapes, a podcast featuring the stories of arts, culture, and heritage in Saskatchewan. SaskScapes continues to discover the rich culture in the town of Gravelbourg with a stop at the Renaissance Gaiety Theatre and a visit with the Gravelbourg Community Players. Lynn Holmes, one of my guests and theatre member, was instrumental in making my trip a success. It was Lynn who introduced me to my new pals in Rock Glen, advised me to contact Louis Stranger with the museum, and brought together a few of the theatre members to meet with me on stage. And yes, Louis Stranger is among the group. I'm Kevin Power, and these are a group of dedicated individuals who have reconnected with their own creative spirit and have made a major impact in the town of Gravelbourg. They are all an inspiration to those who desire to redefine who they are in life and live passionate, creative, vibrant lives. All right, so now we've moved from the museum to the Gaiety Theatre in Gravelbourg. And first of all, who would like to, well, let's find out who we have here. Okay. So, starting on my right.
Is Lynn Holmes.
And Lynn, have you lived here all of your life?
No, I arrived in 2010. I was from Grand Prairie. I retired, and this area was my husband's hometown. And so we came back to Gravelbourg, and we settled and became involved.
Bought a heritage home, by the way.
Did you?
Yes.
What year does your home date back to?
1916.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the exterior is still intact. It's a large brick home. Right. We've had to the interior was renovated, but it's beautiful. Big wraparound porch so that we can sit there and watch the world go by.
And it's received its official heritage designation?
No, because one of the reasons why it hasn't is because the interior, when our previous owners had it, it was in disrepair. And so they did a lot of restructuring, and that restructuring didn't follow the original lines.
Right. But it's still got that clay bank brick.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow, how
beautiful,
lucky.
Beautiful home. Yeah, we are. We're very lucky.
Right, wonderful. And then next we have...
my name is Toos Giesen-Stefjuk.
And you are originally from?
From Holland.
Right.
And I moved here 33 years ago. The reason why we moved here, we had some relatives here. And we were not really planning to live in Gravelbourg.
Yes.
You know, it didn't really appeal to me.
Why?
Because I've been in Alberta and BC, and I thought that is, heaven. This is beautiful. Yeah. But we had two children who were 8 and 11, couldn't speak a word of English, and thought it would be better to start somewhere where we know somebody, and then we'll move on. Right. So 33 years later, everybody moved on except me. Love it here.
You love it?
Yes.
Wow, wonderful. And next in line we have...
Corinne Johnston.
And are you originally from here?
No, we're formerly from Alberta as well.
Another Johnston.
There's quite there's a few of them around here, but we've since learned that there's Johnstones and Johnsons, but we are Johnston. And with 3 beautiful children that my husband and I share, with his job, it creates us allows us to move across through different provinces, and we live in small town communities and raise our family as we go along. And Gravelbourg is our second town that we're moving in.
Wow, and you've been here how long now?
We've been here just 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you also get a heritage home?
No, we did not. No. With the gracious of a lot of the community people here, we have found a place to temporarily call home for now, and just renting it. And it's amazing the great people you get to see and meet, and who will really help out anytime. And it's a great community. It's what we grew up with, what we're used to, and it's what we want our children to be around to as well.
Right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And then there's Louis here, who we've already been talking to. Is there anything more you want to say about yourself, Louis, that you haven't said?
Well, I don't want to steal everybody's time.
Well, we'll find.
Because I could easily fill everything up.
I'm certain. Okay, well, I'll give you a chance to do that. I'll move on to the next person we haven't met yet. Now videoing.
Yes, my name is Jody Faith, and I am an Alberta girl.
Aha.
I grew up, I don't know even how to say it. My husband and I were married in the year 2000, and it was quite a merging, because he's a NDP socialistic Saskatchewan type boy, and I was a entrepreneurial-minded capitalist, and so we've had some interesting times. And in 2003, he took the job here, actually, in this area, as the director of education for the local school division. It was actually housed out of a pretty new building in La Flèche. And so here we came, and we bought a house about 7-8 years ago, perhaps, for $10,000, which allowed us to travel internationally with the music career that was all birthed right here in this little part of paradise. And so the argument now is whether or not we could move where our 20 grandchildren are, all in Alberta.
20 grandchildren?
Just 20.
You don't look old enough to have 20 grandchildren.
Well, it's a blended family. He had 4 children, and I had 3. But my youngest is 29. His eldest is 39. So we had 7 children together, and 20 grandchildren as of February this year. So the international music and speaking career that I've had out of this part of the world to the nations has kind of come to a little bit of a halt. The cost of fuel, which is like over $6 a gallon, right? If you figure it out, it's just crazy. I do a lot of drug-free living presentations in schools and that kind of thing. And in Steinbach, Manitoba, this year, December, I actually had my tires slashed. Oh. I guess maybe I said one too many times, the drug dealer is not your friend. I don't know. But we're just sort of trying to see what comes next. But I get emails with the Gravelbourg drama group here, and I'm always excited to, just kind of hang my hat here where I can and help and stuff. So that's why I'm here today.
So, hey, it's Kevin. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Just a quick reminder that the SaskScapes podcast is available for free on your favorite podcast app, or you can stream it from your browser. Check out the show notes for the link. On the SaskScapes homepage, you'll notice something new under the logo called SaskScapes Plus. You can't miss it. There's a big button saying support with a heart icon next to it. I'd love it if you could click on that button and help keep this podcast series going. When SaskScapes launched in May 2014, it was the first podcast in the province celebrating arts, culture, and heritage. In fact, you'd have been pretty hard-pressed to find any Saskatchewan podcasts. So I'd like to think that we paved the way. It's been because of your support that this podcast is now in its 9th year. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Now I want to get to know about this Gravelbourg drama group. Who is the instigator of this group?
Well, I thought it was collaborative. Actually, I think it was collaborative. Louis and I'm going to say, 2 or 3 years ago, was it, Louis? Yeah. We thought that it was time to resurrect the players. Now, Gravelbourg has always had a theatrical group, and they've performed some pretty amazing stuff in the past, but more of it was long drama. And so with our group, which was kind of a hodgepodge of ages and backgrounds and whatever, that we decided we were going to have it a little bit lighter. And we were going to do something that was more comic. At the time, Gail Cornett, unfortunately, Gail has since passed away. She was our writer in residence, and so she put out, a number of stories that we used and we put up onto stage. So some of them were short skits, some of them were 3-act plays, and others were those kinds that we took the shell and then we just kind of made it our own. Right. And so what was maybe a little bit drama became, like the one we're doing next month, it became a comedy musical. Right. And so that's how it kind of got started. And then through Louis and I mean, it's like he called 2 friends, I called 2 friends, and we got on the phone and we made it. We were hoping we would make it so they couldn't say no, but they had the right. And so, all of a sudden, I'm in touch with Corin, and Corin says, yes, pick me. Called on Jodi's talents. Yes, pick me. And then, Louis, who's acted, the 3 I've mentioned already have acted many times before. But then Louis brought his talents. And then, all of a sudden, you peel back the layers and there's somebody else. I mean, there's talent behind every door. Some people are not always, they're a little bit hesitant to get on stage, but once you get them up here, even if it's in a smaller role, they think, this is lots of fun. Yeah. And it started out where
then you can't get them off.
No, they won't go. And it's like the audience. I mean, we've tried it a number of different ways, right? And at first it wasn't as full as it is, and then all of a sudden, before we knew it, it was always filled to capacity. And that was wonderful. And, right. Of course, and then it started to be a little bit standing room only.
Oh, wonderful.
So before Lynn got here,
yeah,
we had an artist in residence here.
Yes.
Claire Middleton.
I knew of that program quite well.
And she wrote The Decision Maker, which is a story about this town. But it's this town with sort of a different makeup. Like originally you think of French-English, dualistic.
Yeah.
And it was more like it was to involve the whole community, which there's Filipinos.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people, the Dutch, you're not much unless you're Dutch.
Right.
But there they were. And, they're all part of the community now.
Yeah.
And we had a follow-up. We finished the Artist in Residence program with Angela Christie. And she sort of gave people the taste again of theater,
right? And
revitalizing. First of all, we had to rejuvenate or renovate
the
theater here.
I was going to ask you, what was the state of the theater?
Which was the Renaissance Gaiety Theater.
Right.
Originally, it was bought by our economic development officer.
Right.
Eventually wound up in another person's hand that wasn't successful. And then eventually the town bought it.
Right.
And so they developed, they got some grants and they developed the theater. And we got the theater, it never sat.
No.
It never sat.
Right.
But we use it now for weekly movies.
Yeah.
And also we do live theater.
Right.
Occasionally. And we don't force ourselves, like Lynn was saying, we're a consensus group.
Absolutely. Like, whatever we're directing, like, we have a play coming up. We all, twice a year we perform a play. Okay. And then once a year, like in November, we also do a coffee house. So that brings a number of different talents together, whether it's singing, poetry, dancing, whatever. And it's primarily people from Gravelbourg, but we've gone beyond. I mean, it's, there's been people from Mossbank or from La Flèche or, from Kildare that have heard about us and have come out and said, I'd like to perform. And again, it's a way of entertaining the community, giving back to the community, having the community come into the theater and say, wow, I remember coming here as a kid. And I was dropped off to see the movies. Now I'm coming back as an adult, and I'm still still able to enjoy what this, this beautiful building has to offer.
Right.
And so
don't forget to include all the people from the group home. I think that's so wonderful.
absolutely. This is
That is a huge thing that you don't see anywhere else. I've never seen anything like this. And I think, Lynn, that was maybe your brainstorm initially, was because it's difficult in a farming environment sometimes to get enough people to fill a full cast or whatever. That's a great part of the story that happens here regularly.
What happens with
we have a number of group homes here,
Right.
and the adults from the group home, we've had them involved in every play. They've been they've done the singing, some dancing. They've been Santa Claus, and so I mean, again, they just love to be a part of the performance. And how it all happened was that one of my neighbors, she operates a group home, and I got to know her residents. They felt comfortable with me. We were always kidding. I'm saying, do you want to go in a play? Yes, I'd love to. And it was, they just light up and they found purpose. And of course, in the community, many of the group home residents have been known for a long time. And so to see them on stage, I mean, it was wonderful. I think it was heartwarming.
And if I could interject my experience with the Mayflies.
Oh, yeah.
So,
who are the Mayflies?
the Mayflies was our last production in last year for Solstice. I was invited to be part of something, and because I was traveling quite a lot, I said, I don't know if I can be there to really help. But Lynn said, you know what you really could do is if you would dress up as one of the insects on the pond with the rest of the group home residents. All you have to do is, as the music starts, then you're going to dance and sing a little and just keep them engaged. And it was wonderful. What I thought was so cool about the whole process was with the one young woman. She's very timid and rather shy, and so they just put a mirror in her hand, like she was getting ready to go to the party. And she spent a lot of the evening just looking at herself in the mirror, not having to look at the audience, but that became her character. And then some of those big old, bushy bumblebees. And I mean, it was just wonderful. I haven't seen the actual production on DVD, but it was filmed by our local Access Communications out of Weyburn. And I heard just wonderful reports of how well it came off. And I thought, because each individual, even from the group home, was allowed to just do what they did best.
That's bring a little bit of their own character to the part. So if we found that one liked to play the guitar, we gave them the kind of the guitar, and somebody else, like you said, the mirror, and then somebody else likes to comb their hair. And for this play that's coming up, Quentin is very much into Harley Davidson and motorcycles, so I'll give him a leather jacket to put on, and so we'll find the likes, what they enjoy doing, and incorporate it somehow into the play.
And it's just brilliant. And I think, too, talking about the fact that many of those residents have lived in this community for some time, they're also the nieces or nephews or children of residents. And for the family members to see them such a vibrant part of something that's really bringing life to the community is really heartwarming.
Absolutely. Yes.
So what Lynn did
Yes.
is this year, we took a play. I told you about those Heritage Days that La Société put on. And we adapted the play. Originally, it was called Mother Superior and the Flyboys. So Lynn wrote an adaptation on the play. And she kept the Mother Superior, but she brought in Fonzarelli and his group. So it makes it a little more contemporary and much more in touch. Like I was telling you about Coureur de Bois being actualized through the boot camps. So she's used a theme that was there and adapted it to the contemporary circumstances that we live in.
Well, and I think the audience is just gonna have a hoot, because so many of your contemporaries grew up at the convent or College Matthew, right? And they're gonna be reminded, like there's just little things. Timing is gonna be a huge thing, because I think the audience will be laughing out loud at numerous times because of these characters.
We'll have to pause for that. Now, Louis, the names of the sisters in that play, is that It's authentic. Okay, so there's even more fun. So let's say you have maybe one of the girls that had gone to the convent, boarded there as a young woman, now in her, her senior years, sitting back and kind of saying, "Oh, I remember." Because the whole movie is set on or the play is set on the cusp of 1960. The times, they are changing, right? And so, hence the name. But the actual sisters and the town of Gravelbourg is kind of going on like it always has. So that's why the play's name, It's a Matter of Habit.
Right. All right. Are you? Do you have a writing background, Lynn?
No. And in fact, you talked about Angela Christie earlier, the artist in residence. Angela, she had a workshop out in the gallery, or the front of the theater, and opened it up, said, "Would you like, to people, please come join me, see if you'd like to act." And so I wandered in one day. And once she had me in her clutches, I was like silly putty. And I thought, this is fun. Maybe I can do it, because I had never done it before. I was nervous. When she left, she said, "Well, Lynn, you could take it over." And I'm thinking, no, you've got the wrong person. I cannot do this. And I guess it just.
And how many shows later?
I know. I'm actually kind of surprised. It just happened, and I really enjoy it. I like it a lot. I like the acting, absolutely, but I like to see the stage, and I like to see how things evolve. I like people to bring their own personalities to the characters, and so I think I like is it the production end? I'm not sure. I like seeing
the directing and producing end. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because you're a great director in that you're allowing today. Annette had a few ideas as to what she might look like, and all of a sudden Lynn was like, "Oh yeah, that's great." So you're allowing the community to build the show a little bit.
Well, I think that's one of the things about the drama club is it's collaborative. We decided at the beginning, didn't we, Louis, that when we set the foundation, that we didn't have any real experience, and so by calling upon each of us,
we made a lot of executive decisions.
Well, we did do that too,
Well,
but we have to. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it can kind of all talk. But at some point, you can get, you can bring Corin's ideas and the different ideas together, and I think. Well, I don't know what to say. It's just that I think by bringing all of our minds together, we just come up with something better, and we learn from that.
Right.
Next time around, then it's totalitarian.
But at this point in time, it is very much evolution of community theater.
Yes.
It is true community theater. And I think that's, like, you literally, this is what I thought we could tell you, because I was hoping you had money to offer to get these theaters going all over Saskatchewan, is you have a blueprint that works very well and could happen in every other community, because it isn't based on professionalism and directing school, and it's just based on a community effort, and it's wonderful. It really is. And it would be so simple for you to say, well, here's how we've done it. It's not rocket science, but it's very collaborative and very community
And
oriented.
if you notice, our plays are never more than 20, 25 minutes.
Yep.
So we don't overdo it. Like, you've got groups that do long plays.
Right. It's a lot more difficult.
And that's,
Yeah.
Are there other drama groups in town, or are you it?
Not here in town.
Right.
But in the area, like there's guys that do murder mysteries.
Right.
Dinner theaters and things.
And Kadair,
Yeah, they do. have
Kadair
long
does
plays.
dinner theater. They do it every second year because they realize how long it can take to bring it all together and to make it, to do it so well. And so that community is very small, but there are performers, there's people from here that perform there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what do you do in between times? I mean, if you're doing 2 productions a year, there's a lot of time off.
Oh, absolutely. So we have other things. Are you referring to what's happening at the theater, or just life in general?
Or life in general at the theater.
I guess the other thing, I'm coordinating the coffee house.
Oh.
So in November, so I'll go and I'll find local talent, guitarists and singers and poets and stuff, and I'll set it up. So they'll be having an evening in November, and then they will be on stage. And so that's another event that we do on an annual basis. Right. We also I do the silver screen. So right now it's once every month. Silver screen is we play classic movies, Sunday afternoon, and it is by donation, and so that's once a month, Sunday from 2 to 4, and so if there's 10 people or 2 people or whatever, they can come in and they can watch a classic movie, have a popcorn or a coffee, and kind of just step back in time. So that's another thing. I do a part-time photography, so I've been involved with that a little bit. I had put together some photography books about the area. One to do with Jesuit convent, and the other one is called Out My Back Door, and it's just glimpses of Gravelbourg.
Nice.
We used to do what they call the Spectacle du Coup de Cœur, which was funded through la Commission culturelle francophone, which is the cultural end from the francophone end.
Right.
A lot of these spectacles, or whatever you call them, come to the cultural center, but from time to time they come here if they need a bigger venue.
Right.
But for instance, you've got La Troupe du Jour, which comes out of Saskatoon.
Very well known.
Which, and they've performed here a lot. And, this place is always here. If we need a bigger venue, this is the place we use.
So what would you guys say to a small community that doesn't necessarily have a venue like the Gaiety Theatre, but has a usable space enough that conceivably a play could be put on? How do you start? Well, even sort of as you were saying, the blueprint. I mean, maybe what you should be doing is.
Okay. Yep. Well, I'm just going to let Toast come in here for a minute too, because when you had the Cafe Paris, and what we would do is we would contact you. In fact, I contacted you. We talked about putting plays on at the theater, and then at that time we used to sell tickets through Cafe Paris.
Yeah. Also, I would get phone calls from bands who were coming through, and they had no money and they couldn't rent a theater, and they would ask, "Can we perform at your restaurant?"
Yeah.
And then they came back a year later, and then the community knew about them, and then they were able to afford to play here. And so that's how things start growing. Also, I remember years ago, must have been 10 years ago or so, I thought it would be a good idea to have a Christmas concert. So I thought if we get children involved, then the parents will come and the grandparents will come. So we approached the schools. We asked every school to send a choir, and they did, and a few local people to sing. It was all local. It was nothing professional. We were so overwhelmed. It was packed in here, and we had dragging more chairs and wow. So if you get your children involved, you know what? The parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts, they all will show up.
And if we're going to tell other communities what to do, I think first of all, do not be afraid about your size, because whether there's 400 people or whether there's 1,000 plus, even 5,000 people, it's a matter of first, that have heart, to be inspired, be prepared that there might be some no's, but be prepared that you're giving people the opportunity to say, yes, I am interested, and that you tie into their timelines. I mean, for us, we found that it was easier that people who were maybe semi-retired, even those that are still raising their children, we didn't choose as many young adults or students to be in the club right away, but we do use their talents. We contact them as the part comes up. And the reason we chose that group of people is because we were able to get together a little easier. I mean, that's one thing you have to be able to get together. It doesn't have to be every week, but when you're getting ready to prepare something, you have to at least be able to meet, once a week, every couple of weeks, once a month, and to put together, first of all, your ideas. Second of all, thinking out what advertising. Advertising is really important. And the way you advertise it is not always the same in every community. I have found you could paper this town, and not everybody would see that poster because they are not looking for it. So you have to make sure that you talk, and you talk a lot, and that person then finds something you're saying is exciting and will talk to another person. And then you do have to go back and put up those posters, and you do have to find out what radio or magazines or
We've got a couple of newspapers here too.
that's right, newspapers, whatever. You'll have to find which ones, ideally, that you can give them an editorial or whatever, so you can do it for free or minimal amount of money, because you don't have a lot of money to start with, I'm assuming.
Kildare is a very good example.
Absolutely.
It's a very small community, doesn't have a theater. They don't advertise a lot, but it's always sold out. It's just...
It's become a tradition also,
Yes.
hasn't it? I think that's the other thing.
It's a big
that,
fundraiser for
Yeah,
the
but the
town.
thing is,
Yeah.
in a bigger town like this, there's a lot of things for people to rally around.
Yes.
That's true.
So, the challenge is, we've got to,
always something
we got to get our part of the lunch here.
Yeah, right.
But I think one thing that they've done here that's brilliant is to say, exactly as Lynn shared, that they do a show, traditionally, they're going to do one around Christmas and one in the spring, and then the coffee house in the fall. So there's the community after a time starts anticipating that, and the phone starts ringing, hey, my granddaughter could come and sing at your coffee house next time, or so there's an anticipation of something that's coming, and I think that would be advice that I would use.
Absolutely.
Right?
But what you're doing is you're making your activity extremely accessible to the community to participate in.
Yes, we're working around. For example, we're a farming community. At that time, especially in June, people are in the field. It's busy, and so we found in November is an ideal time to have a coffee house. I mean, harvest is coming, to an end. People are looking to do something. They're available to lend their talents and available their time to come to a performance.
But
So
I think too that the community has people that are culturally adept. Like, we have a bilingual musical festival here. And La Flèche has one too.
Yeah.
And so people, it's not just the performing arts. It's a whole cross-section of arts that happen.
Yeah, and that has been nurtured very, very well by both, festival committees. And so if you look over the long term, so now you've kicked something off in your community, and exactly what Lynn said, you can do a 2-3 person play and people are going to be entertained. So you don't have to don't take on Oklahoma, as your first attempt, right? Keep it super simple. Maybe have an opening act, which is going to sing or play or do something. And then you've got the actual presentation. But you also are nurturing, in these communities, you're nurturing the arts and cultural sort of environment by having these kids coming up and stuff. So I think that that's a really great strategy for the future.
I think they get a lot of it at school too, because the schools put on their own plays.
Lauren, you had mentioned, Matthew Chapata, and then there's one of the grade 7 teachers. Louis, that was Mrs. Potvin.
Yeah.
Yes, if I pronounced
Shannon
it.
Padvin.
Buffet. And, she looks at her grade 7 class, at least this is what my understanding, and she says, she kind of gets a feel about how excited they're getting about maybe doing a performance, and it's not with every class. There's a certain vibe in some of the classes that say, yeah, I can do this. And then they'll put on a wonderful performance at the school in the gym. And that was one of the first things that I ever saw here. I'm sure that was my turning point too, to go into the gym there, and it's like,
I just remember when we did that film, La Petite Séduction.
Yes.
We drew on the octopus, which was some old college boys that got together. They've always had a group. They call it the octopus.
Yeah,
They're
musical
not
group,
too active, but they can sprout up anytime. They're there to be had.
Right. Tell me something. What does this form of creativity give you personally?
That's great. I could jump in.
why did the
All of you.
And for me, I was forbidden from singing for 17 years, my first marriage. I was not, we literally were not allowed as kids, as the spouse here, we weren't even allowed to hum or sing in our home. And what I discovered by becoming involved in theater and music again, after my second husband asked me to do so, was that there was a part of me that had been withering, like literally withering, because I wasn't involved in anything creative. I had been Anne of Green Gables in the 8th grade. That's a pretty big thing, right? And I never did another theatrical or musical thing at a community level until I started teaching voice lessons here in La Flèche. And so for me, it was, there's so many cliches you could use, the caterpillar and the cocoon and the butterfly and all those amazing things.
Right.
But really, that's part of what I have personally experienced. But more importantly for me, what I want to mentor in the next generation is that we need to have some sort of vehicle from which to use our creative gifts.
It just gives you like a sense of kind of belonging in the community and growth, and it's something that you can take with you wherever you want. Like I remember in high school, when you have a teacher just out of university and they're doing their practicum, and each teacher has a strength. And we had a teacher that did drama club. And so he's like, anybody who wants to be in drama club, well, I'm just like, yeah, sign me up. So we did that, and it just kind of started from there. It's taking things and working with them too. I remember doing a little skit during class one day, and I was supposed to be a crying mother over the loss of her child who had done something terrible. And I covered my eyes and I was laughing so hard at myself, but I was supposed to be crying. So I took the laughing and turned it into a sob like a mother would be. But it's just taking the part with it and just going with the flow. And then as you grow and you go into other communities, it's great to see something like this. Like just to sit here in this theater right now, you get a sense of history, you get a sense of stories throughout it, and you can see like there's other little theaters that are so similar. It's like, I just wish I could take everybody and we could all go on a tour of all the little theaters, like that are kind of hiding in the cobwebs.
I bet you there's a grant for that. Just take our inspiration and go with it.
And after our last production here, not that long ago, I actually got upstairs to see in the projection room, and you could see the ash from the old movie theater where they take the spark plug and it runs it, and it's still sitting there, the little pile inside the projector. You see all the projector wheels, and you're just like, one day it just shut down, and all of a sudden it sits here all in quiet and dust. And
It's an old style projector, eh?
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful visualization, sort of out of the ashes.
yeah,
Out of the old is something so new and so unique and so different, and that's okay. It's okay.
I think that's exactly it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. I mean, you, in a way, we've kind of repurposed the theater. The theater was it was a very much a movie house in the early years. Like
I
it
used to
showed,
come here to next
absolutely.
with my
They they had the movies on the reels, and then I don't know if it ever really sat, but there were fewer performances. I think people always thought that they had to be very in later years very lavish, but I always thought of it this way: if you can't cook, set a great table. If you can't, well, I shouldn't say can't act. If you're a little worried about your acting, just set up a really wild and crazy stage. I mean, because again, it's the same idea, and people will see the stage and forget about whether you've made a hiccup with your lines.
So Lynn, tell me, what is it about this thing called theater that what's it give you?
Well, before I arrived in Gravelbourg, I lived in Grand Prairie, and I was on my own for 20 years, and all I did was I got up in the morning and I went to work, and my life was very encompassed about work. I enjoyed my work, but I didn't feel I had the time to participate into community. And then when I retired and we moved down here, I took one look at the town and I really loved it, but I thought, I'm not going to do the same thing over again. I am going to be involved in the community. I'm going to go and find out, I'm going to look around a little bit, and I'm going to, find something I really, well, I don't know if I love it yet, that it's going to be a love relationship. So I sat on the theater board for, just as an observer. And then I realized, I really like this. This is the way I'm going to give back to the community. And then, as I got involved with the theater board, and we had events come into town, then I realized, there's a lot of talent here. We really need to, look, within the community. So then I met up with Louis, and we developed the drama club, and then we started to call upon the talent from in town. So I guess where I came from was that I came where I was not involved at all, to becoming involved. And so the theater just,
It's given you a second life.
It's given me a second life, and actually, like Jody over there, I remember this little girl in a red velvet dress, being in the choir, a church choir, like you had a little performance in the church choir, and I remember them saying, "Now you just mouth the words," because I could not sing. And that was okay. That was okay, because now, as an older person, I found my voice. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay if you kind of fall over your lines. It's okay if if you do these things. And it's all in good fun.
Well, and
So I found the fun.
Going back into the history of this town, they had a lot of things done for them by the religious orders. Like the fathers at the college always had us, every group, put on a play.
Oh, okay.
And the sisters had operettas, and they sort of specialized in music and performing arts at the convent. And there was sort of a lapse when the sisters were no longer. The community sort of regressed, and now I think it's starting to feel some of its own year. Right. It's coming back.
Well, and it was interesting just thinking about how I ever even came here. I was hosting a garage sale at my house, and Lynn and another girl from Gravelbourg came out to the La Flèche, and really we were just shopping, having a coffee, whatever, and she realized that I sang, because I don't know if you knew that until that day, because I had my CDs and maybe my music playing also, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what are you doing? We have this coffee house, maybe you could come sing, and ironically I'm seldom in Canada in November, so I have yet to be there, but that was the first invitation. And then I think Gail Cornett was just such an inspiration to so many of us. But she sat me down in her office one day. I was just there to visit and see how she was doing, and she was battling cancer. And she said, you need to be part of this. And I think that what I'm hearing around this table today is probably the most exciting thing for me, is that there's a sense of community within the region.
Yes, we're not limiting it just to Gravelbourg. I mean, I think that's exactly it. We always think we're maybe the hub here, but there is talent, in all the southern part. excuse me, everywhere, but we look at beyond,
Right, it is
beyond
bigger
our
than just
backyard,
this
yes.
town, right?
Yeah,
And as you
Well,
said.
so southern Saskatchewan
Southern
is
Sask-
extremely culturally
It's
rich.
amazing.
But I think that that's not something that took place even one generation ago. People did not necessarily go up and down the road between La Flèche and Gravelbourg. They were very much insulated in their smaller communities. And with this vision here, and if we were talking to someone in another community, like look outside of your own backyard.
Right.
Absolutely. And you've witnessed it already. I introduced you to Jan and Neil, Ron Glenn. Yeah. And I met them through a photographer. And then I meet Jan, who's inspired by music, by art, by, so much. And then Neil is an artist. And then they in turn have introduced me to someone else. And so therefore now the communities are kind of looking to each other and see how they can share some things.
That's how creative, when you open yourself up to creativity, that's how life works.
Absolutely.
Life
The
brings
door's
it
open.
to you. Yeah.
And I don't think we're so far away from something that was shared around the table, that there could literally be a traveling theater production that would go to all those communities. We're already working on it. Like that would be the evolution out of the blueprint. You never would have visioned that. Like we're here to, do one
I've
thing.
talked to the people from Kildare,
Yeah.
After I heard their success and
Yes.
funny play they had, and they said, well, we cannot do it right now, but in the fall, we want to come to Gravelbourg. And
So there you go.
Yeah.
And to get something like that going, because I know it's overwhelming. Everything that's being done right now, the rehearsal that took place today, is for one Sunday afternoon here. But when you see how well it goes off, it's sometimes
you wanna do
it
it
would be,
again.
we should do it more and share it with other
Yes.
communities, because it was so great, right?
The Paris Cafe, do you still have that?
no, I,
But was it yours for a while?
I started.
You started
A
it,
number
Yeah.
of years,
Yeah,
right?
8 years. Yeah. I had it for 8 years. Yeah.
and then you sold it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And had you come from a background of baking and food,
No.
from the food industry? No?
No,
So what-
and I've never worked in a restaurant. I had no idea, but I thought it was fun, to have a coffee shop, visit with people, and and
did you do
I
all
love
the baking and all the cooking and everything
most of
too?
it. Yes.
Wow, that's
I
pretty
love-
brave for someone who had no experience.
And she's
at
very
all.
modest. She's an extraordinary,
Well, after listening to-
entertainer in terms of,
After listening to you guys' story, I lived in this town for 20 years
Yes.
and was not involved in nothing. We had a motel, and I was stuck at this motel and didn't do nothing. And then my husband passed away, and then one of the ladies from town, he said, Tosh, you should get out and do stuff. And I went, nah, And then she said, there's this leadership program, you should attend. And I said, no, I don't want to do this, no, I'm not a leader. And she said, and it costs $350. Oh, I have an excuse, I don't have $350. So she comes back and she says to me, I got a sponsor for you. and next week you will, and I'm like, oh no. So we went with a whole group of us. You were one of them, didn't we? To Moosja, a whole group of us, we went there, and for 2 days we had this workshop, and I came back and I thought, okay, what was this all about? And then we had a follow-up, and so we had to do a project, and we painted a wall in town, and then the next project we had to come up with an idea, and I said, the Santa Claus parade, I don't like that Santa Claus parade, we should, because it's a drunken Santa Claus on a half-ton truck. And so the lady said,
That in and of itself is a play.
and she said to me, now, how about you organize a parade? And I'm thinking, I don't know how to do this. Well, she said, you just phone all the organizations and people, and then you have a parade.
Was that the Festival of Lights?
No,
this is a different
parade. It
We've
was-
had so damn many things that I'm always.
I know. That was just the first thing I did. And I phoned around and I said, we're organizing a parade and we'll start there and there. So the day came and I'm thinking, nobody's going to show up, like, oh. And then we had this parade and all the people came and there were like 4 Santa Clauses and I'm standing there on Main Street crying and I'm thinking, they all came. Look at this. It was beautiful. So that was
Wonderful story.
this was my first thing I did.
Wow.
And then,
All because of a drunk Santa in the back of a
See,
pickup.
Yeah.
that's got to be the Christmas production. A drunk Santa in a pickup truck.
Well, that wasn't me.
Then there's your role. You're already cast.
I don't even drink.
It's done. Well, that's the magic of theater. You'll leave
Yeah.
us
No,
with
this
the illusion
town
that
has
you
been
are.
fortunate in hosting all kinds of events.
Well,
I
you're-
remember putting on a medieval feast here,
Oh.
second to none. Like, we had everything. We had the soldiers of the king from the Les Médiévales de Québec.
And wild boar. And
Oh,
meat
we had
and mead.
fire breather.
Large
We had
chunks.
dance group from Moose Jaw, and it was all put on through the cultural. We've had three fêtes françaisoises here in this town, which is a major provincial event. It rallies.
Your town is an inspiration to people who don't know how to start, but somehow feel like there's
really
got
Well,
to
and
be
we've had a lot of events that have petered out.
Yeah.
Like, we had the sports celebrity supper.
Well, but
where
it was
we brought
awesome for
in-
a season.
Yeah,
right?
season.
Yeah.
It went on for 10 years.
I started an international food festival
Yes.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still
and is
going
that
on.
still going on?
Yes. But see, what I think is so wonderful about what's been shared here is that, so often we'll disqualify ourselves. Like, who am I? Well, now we've just heard your story of how you came to be a leader in this community, not something you ever envisioned for yourself.
No.
Lynn went from working full time and obviously just being tired at the end of the day. For myself, I mean, literally forbidden from doing these things, and then just to have, young blood, like you can't see how old we all are necessarily, but, then you have newcomers to the community who come and they share their enthusiasm. It becomes multi-generational, right?
Yeah.
Intergenerational. It becomes, kind of, nobody has a mandate
Well-
specifically, or it's just life giving.
What I like
right?
about the group here right now is it's new blood.
Yeah.
Like, Lynn is new blood, Corinne is new blood. We had actors last time that aren't here this time, but it's all new blood. Eh?
Yeah.
Right.
We were talking about that earlier. I'm on many committees in town here. And when you go to a committee meeting, you look around the table and hardly anybody's born in this town. It's all strangers who came here and see all the opportunities we have. The locals don't see it. Somehow they don't see it. Well, I
But they
don't
sure
know.
benefit from it.
Oh,
They
yeah,
do.
well,
And they
that's
enjoy
good.
it and they
Yes.
want it, right? And I think
Yes.
that
But Toast, they've been, like, this community was nourished right from the start by the religious orders.
Yes.
I think some of that has spilt
I
onto
think
the, like, they were used to getting things done for them.
Some communities fear that their arts groups are dying, and I don't get the sense with you guys that that's the case.
It's kind of like the
I think
phoenix.
it's the opposite. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Well,
and
But I think we will always do what we're doing
I
because
believe
we're
you will.
doing it because we enjoy doing it. In other times of our lives, we may not have the time. Maybe we didn't have the, the calling. Maybe we didn't feel confident. Any number of things. But we're doing it now, and I'm thinking we're doing it as much for love.
You shouldn't forget about the money part,
No, that's
because without, the support of the town, we wouldn't be able to do this.
Right.
But you are proving to the town that it's used and people enjoy this, and that's why the town still puts
Exactly.
money in this.
Exactly.
So it's so important to put this on and show to the community that's worthwhile to put money in the building.
Absolutely. And I think, again, that would be, as I said, I said earlier that we would do it regardless
You do
for the
your
love of it.
part.
But at the same time, if I wanted people to come back to the theater.
Yes.
And Lynn, you said that your initial participation created a flame for you, that it ignited a flame. in you.
Yes.
And I truly believe that that flame is the thing that just continues to bring all that you all hope can happen, really, really at lightning speed come at you, because as I said earlier, creativity just attracts everything that you need to make it happen when it comes from a real place of authenticity. And because it's all being birthed out of experiences of what you were before you had this, it's real. It's, you know, it's real and it's palpable and it's tangible, versus having sat out to do this from the get-go. You're finally living the second half of your lives with passion leading it.
Oh, and it's exciting because it is so much more than anything a person dreamed or imagined in the beginning.
Right.
Like, it's just evolved.
And you're you're also healing some rather sort of bittersweet kind of damaging memories from your past of being told that you can't. And there's a great
that society says you don't have time for.
But there's a great catharsis in theater. You know, there really
Too bad
is.
that Palmer group isn't here.
I wanted, yes, I think I'd like to wrap up with that.
Yeah.
We fail to recognize there's a group of individuals that live in Palmer that's just down the road, and they have been amazing. I mean, Dan has been the fellow that has looked after our lights and our sound, and then there's been James, who has helped to paint and rebuild and the theater. I'm never asking for much other than maybe the money for the supplies. Then there's been the creativity that's come from that group too, that have helped us to put on plays, and so again, our sister community giving us the support.
And if I may speak as from the younger generation, no matter, I think, whatever community you grew up with, but I am going to relate to small town because that's why I grew up in Vulcan, Alberta. It's a small farming community, but yet they were known as like one of Western Canada's largest grain belt communities there. And going through the streets with my parents, and my dad is always a detailed person. He's like, right where White's photography studio, that's where the theater used to be. He said they had the great big projection wheels, and he'd tell you about how they used to have 2 or 3 theaters right within there and studios. And it's like he paints this grand picture, and yet I sit in here and I look around and I'm like, I get it. Yeah. I know what he was talking about. I know what he lived with. And now these days we can pick up our phones, we can pick up our satellites, our mobile phones, and pull up something and watch it right there. And you miss the interaction of going out for a Sunday night flick, grabbing that fresh popcorn. You can go to the city, but it's right here in Gravelbourg.
Well said. Well said. I that's exactly it. It's rekindling that bit of youth in some, and inspiring, that.
It's like reigniting the spark of projecting field.
Yes, and introducing the youth to that now.
It's like the legacy living on.
Thanks for listening. The SaskScapes podcast is created by Kevin Power as part of the Culture Days Animateur program operated by Sask Culture. Funding to the cultural sector is provided through the Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust Fund for Sports, Culture and Recreation. If you want to hear more of these podcasts, or to see the great work being done by other Sask Culture animateurs, please visit www.iheartculture.ca. Special thanks to Paved Arts in Saskatoon for their technical support. Music for SaskScapes is provided by Saskatchewan-born singer-songwriter Jeffrey Straker. There is no end to the stories to be told. So, until next time,